huge political developments in Pakistan with the Deputy Speaker of the Pakistani Assembly dismissing a no-trust motion against Imran Khan. Imran Khan then addressing the people in his country and saying that there was a conspiracy against his government and that the Deputy Speaker did the right thing and that he has now spoken to the President of Pakistan to dismiss the National Assembly. In fact, the President of Pakistan has now done that. The National Assembly has been dismissed, which means that elections in Pakistan need to take place within a period of 90 days. Imran Khan said that this was a conspiracy against an elected government, but one that has failed. What is that conspiracy? It was a conspiracy which he has been alleging for the last couple of days, that the United States and their allies had impressed upon the opposition in his country to move a no-confidence motion against his government to try and bring it down, and that this was being inspired by the West. Whether that conspiracy angle is actually going to be something which appeals to people in Pakistan in elections which will now take place in 90 days, nobody knows. But Imran Khan, in his address to the nation, telling people, be ready soon for fresh elections. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, the leader of the Pakistan People's Party, one of the two main opposition parties in Pakistan, has said that the dismissal of the motion was unconstitutional and that the opposition is on its way already to the Pakistan Supreme Court.
नेशनल असेंबली के हमारे स्पीकर ने मुस्तरद किया, रिजेक्ट किया एक वो मूव, रिजीम चेंज की जो कोशिश की गई थी पाकिस्तान के 22 करोड़ अवाम में, एक बाहर से प्लान किया हुआ नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन जिसके पीछे एक फॉरेन एजेंडा था, और जो आज स्पीकर ने उसको जो रिजेक्ट किया है और ये नो कॉन्फिडेंस को जो रिजेक्ट किया, मैं सारी कौम को आज मुबारक देता हूं। ये इस तरह की साजिश इंशाल्लाह ये कौम कामयाब नहीं होने देगी। प्रेसिडेंट साहब को वो भेज दिया है, एडवाइस भेज दी है कि असेंबलियां डिसॉल्व करें। एक डेमोक्रेटिक सोसाइटी में हम डेमोक्रेट्स अवाम के पास जाएं, अवाम से इलेक्शंस हों, अवाम फैसला करे कि वो किसको चाहती है। कोई बाहर से साजिश और इस तरह के लोग, करप्ट लोग, पैसे की बोरियों से लोगों को खरीद के इस मुल्क की तकदीर का फैसला ना करें। हम प्रेसिडेंट साहब को जब एडवाइस चला जाएगा, असेंबलीज डिसॉल्व हो जाएंगी और फिर आगे जो भी प्रोसीजर है अगले इलेक्शन का, केयरटेकर गवर्नमेंट का, वो अब शुरू हो जाएगा।
So this was a real political masterstroke, some would suggest, by Imran Khan. The numbers were clearly against him. His government was going to collapse. Instead, he has taken the initiative and has called for fresh elections. The governor has backed that call, so there will be elections in Pakistan in 90 days. The opposition fairly stumped at this stage. Let's listen in to what Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, the opposition leader of the Pakistan People's Party, the son of the late Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, has had to say.
आज ये नजराते हुए आखिरी मौके पे स्पीकर साहब ने गैर आईनी काम किया है, पाकिस्तान का आईन तुड़वाया गया है। यूनाइटेड ऑपोजिशन ने ये फैसला किया है कि हम नेशनल असेंबली में धरना देंगे जब तक हमारा आईनी हक ना दिया जाए, और हम अपना लॉयर से इस वक्त आज ही अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट पहुंचेंगे कि हमारा पोलिंग, हमारा अदम एतमाद का वोट आज ही किया जाए। अदम एतमाद वज़ीर आज़म साहब के खिलाफ जमा हो चुका है, वो पार्लियामान को डिसॉल्व भी नहीं कर सकता है, अदम एतमाद का मुकाबला करना पड़ेगा।
Well, joining us now, the senior journalist Imtiaz Alam. Mr. Alam, thanks very much for being with us. Is it correct that Imran Khan will remain caretaker Prime Minister?
He can only continue for a few days if this whole exercise is sanctified by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. It is flagrant violation of the Constitution. It's a parliamentary coup, and he has created a constitutional breakdown. Now there are two options. Either Supreme Court intervenes or army takes over. This is a very dangerous situation which Imran Khan has created. This is an attack like Hitler attacked German parliament way back in history. His speaker, his deputy speaker, his minister of law took a long plea which is against the constitution, because under the constitution today the vote of no confidence motion had to be taken up and vote had to take place. But instead of doing that, which was the constitutional obligation of the presiding officer, who was today Deputy Speaker, he rejected on a call notice by the law minister that this is a conspiracy and this vote of no confidence is part of the international conspiracy and against Pakistan, and so this motion cannot be accepted because it is against the Article 5 of the Constitution. But Article 5...
The Deputy Speaker of the Pakistan National Assembly, just for the benefit of our viewers, how is he selected? Is he also a member of Imran Khan's party?
Yes, he was presiding over... Yes, he is the member of PTI from Quetta, Balochistan. But the Speaker was absent because the Speaker, the opposition had filed a vote of no confidence motion against the Speaker as well, because they were expecting something from the Speaker. But the Deputy Speaker, instead of asking for vote, asked Fawad Chaudhary, the Minister of Law, on a point of order. And he said that this cannot be accepted, this is a foreign conspiracy and should be rejected. The Deputy Speaker gave his ruling that this is against the Constitution and Pakistan. So I reject this motion without calling the vote of the Member of Parliament. At that time, the opposition had a majority of 176 votes, while it required only 172. The government side had very few members, almost half. 80 of its members were present in the House, but they had this plan up their sleeve.
So, Mr. Alam, the bottom line over here, Mr. Alam, the bottom line over here, who is in charge in Pakistan right now, as we speak?
Nobody. Prime Minister could not give advice to the President to dissolve the National Assembly because he was under a vote of no confidence. When a motion is moved against the Prime Minister, he cannot dissolve the assemblies. But he advised the President wrongly, and the President, again unconstitutionally, accepted his advice and dissolved the assembly.
Right.
So, de facto, Imran Khan, in fact, by this constitutional coup, Imran Khan and his colleagues have caused a breakdown of the Constitution. And in Pakistan, when the Constitution is broken down, generally army comes and intervene and take over.
What is
this
the legal...
time, they might not.
Right.
And the Supreme Court may intervene. And if the Supreme Court intervenes, then all these measures could be held in abeyance and Supreme Court can order...
All right. Well, I'm also joined, sir. Just 1 second, sir. I'm also joined by General Syed Atta Hasnain, who's been following developments very closely. General Hasnain, do you believe this opens the door for the Pakistan army more in this present situation? Political enormous rift in Pakistan right now. Will that chasm be filled potentially by the Pakistan army?
Well, Vishnu, to put it simplistically, that seems to be the most appropriate thing to happen perhaps, but may not necessarily so. Because as it is, the issue has moved to the Supreme Court, and you were also asking as to who is really an authority at this time. That is the issue actually, who is really an authority at this time. But if the Supreme Court can convene and quickly take a decision, perhaps the crisis to some extent can be abated. Otherwise, I do not foresee any other way except that the army will step in, at least temporarily, if nothing else. They would not want to touch a issue which is constitutional in nature, and secondly can be hugely crisis laden, because as it is, the kind of a legacy which Imran Khan is leaving behind is nothing great. The army would not like to be saddled with the kind of security situation, the kind of economic situation which exists in Pakistan at the moment. So there is a crisis at the moment, there's no doubt. It's only the Pakistan army which can actually step in to stave it off.
You know, I'm just trying to understand the legality of what the president has done. Does a decision by the president actually overrule what the Supreme Court may actually feel in this? Do any of you gentlemen have an opinion on that?
Yes, President's order can be challenged and Supreme Court turn it down. and stay his order.
I see. I see.
And the whole process will be, in fact, if the court will intervene, it will have to overturn the whole procedure, which is against the Constitution.
Right. All
But
right.
it may not happen in a hurry, Vishnu. It may not happen in a hurry.
And that's the worry.
Period is
And General, that's the worry, isn't it? How does something like this move in a hurry? So there will be an interim period of further, instability. There's strange reports coming in. Apparently, the Islamabad police isn't listening to the government, etc., etc. So again, it potentially leads to a law and order situation developing. Would be a worry. General Hasnain?
That's exactly the situation which should be worrying everyone in Pakistan at the moment, because Pakistan is known to have a history of this. I remember the time when President Ayub got unseated by his own successor, General Yahya Khan at that time, but there was a civil society turbulence in the streets which went on for close to something like 3 months almost. And we have seen similar turbulence in the streets of Pakistan many, many times. It can lead to severe internal security challenges, both for the army and the police set up in Pakistan. And that is something that they should be really worried about.
Okay. Mr. Alam, the rhetoric or the line taken by Imran Khan that, look, this is a foreign conspiracy. Do you believe that 3 months from now, assuming elections do take place at that stage, if not earlier, that will gel? Is that something that could be a political masterstroke?
I think that was a very cunning move, but that has backfired today, because Imran Khan has crossed all constitutional limits and parliamentary norms, and people would not like the democracy to be derailed again. And we had this transition for the last 14 years. So now time is too short. Immediately the Supreme Court intervenes. If it doesn't intervene, then there will be constitutional breakdown. And when there is a vacuum, we have a history of army intervention, and I am worried about that.
Yeah.
I hope that army will keep out, and Supreme Court will come forward. Pakistan's Bar Council and Supreme Court Bar have come out and are going to the Chief Justice of Pakistan, along with the petitions by the opposition parties, to stay the whole process and order the convening of the assembly for a vote of confidence or no confidence.
So, Mr. Alam, at this juncture, let's just take a look at what the army chief has actually said in the last couple of days. Imran Khan had rhetoric against the United States. The army chief yesterday said that America is our closest ally, etc., etc. So, just on that point, very sharp differences emerging between Imran and the army. If Imran Khan is going to be pushing, as quite clearly is evident, the Western conspiracy angle, then is the Pakistani army, is it bound to sort of react to this perhaps more proactively than what we've seen?
I think army had a very cordial relationship with Imran Khan.
Which went south? Which went south?
No, even till the last 2 days, army was invited by Imran Khan to mediate with the opposition on 3 options: resign, face vote of no confidence, and finally elections. So opposition rejected that proposal, and Imran Khan reneged on his proposal. Now, army has exhausted its potential of a negotiation between the 2 warring parties, civilian parties. Now what will happen is, now the matter will go to the court or on the streets. There is a danger of confrontation between the opposition workers and the PTI workers on the streets of Pakistan. And of course, the army will not be seeing it with lot of patience.
Right.
They may lose the patience.
General Hasnain, from being so very close to the Pakistan army, there's been a bit of a shift, a considerable one, on this particular issue between Imran Khan and the army. Where do you see that relationship presently? Does it exist at all?
Well, as Mr. Alam just said, that they still seem to be in some kind of a consultation mode, which apparently is more for the moment, for seizing the moment more than anything else. But largely over the last 4 years, the manner in which Imran Khan has handled the national economy for one, a foreign policy for on the second side, on the other side, and other general relationships in terms of internal security, the religious angle, etc. The Pakistan Army may not want to see itself associated with someone who is being perceived as a failure. Because the moment that happens, the Pakistan Army itself loses face. So that is the prime reason why this relationship has been diluting over the last, particularly in the last 2 years or so. It came to a head on the whole issue of General Faiz Hamid, on the issue of the appointment of the new ISI chief at that particular time. And the army, well, it was generally General Bajwa's contention, he could not allow that kind of a thing to happen. And since then, as you say very correctly, everything has gone southwards. I don't foresee anything in the very near future where this can be retrieved, because it seems that the opposition has come together.
Right.
And I'm sure the army has got something to do with that unity of the opposition which is taking place at the moment. Because the army would also want to see stabilization. This is not the stage in the world politics also to see a nation so unstable as Pakistan is at the moment.
All right, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Alam, I assume you're gearing up for elections in Pakistan, at least in the next couple of months. It's going to be a hot summer. It's going to be a very hot summer politically and as usual otherwise. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
I think election will be in September or October.
Okay. Let's see what happens. Thanks, sir, very much for being with us. We'll take a short break. More coming up.